In my journey to grow great garlic, I have certainly run into my fair share of trials and tribulations, whether it be from pests or having to move, all sorts of different issues. And in this video, I think I'm getting close to that epic harvest. Kevin Espiritu here from Epic Gardening, where it is my goal to help you grow a greener thumb. You guys know I've had some issues with garlic. Today's video, we're talking all about from the point where you produce scapes if you're growing hardneck garlic, or about a month before that garlic harvest, through the harvest, curing, and usage of garlic. So we're talking about all of that stuff. How do you know when to harvest? Everything like that. So we're getting to the actual conclusion, the satisfaction of growing garlic. So cultivate that like button, and I will bless you with thick, long, voluminous garlic scapes, and let's get into the video. As always, I'm learning in the garden as much as you are, so before we get into the garlic scape section, which I'm really excited about, I'll just talk quickly about some things I may have done differently, even with this crop, which I think probably will be my best one yet. Number one, I probably planted it way too late in the season. I could have planted this in the fall, but I didn't. I planted it in late February because I was vernalizing the garlic, keeping it in the fridge for 3 months, which skipped the winter. We'll see if that was a mistake or if that was a good call. But the next step here in our garlic growth journey is, if you're growing the hardneck, looking at these garlic scapes. Garlics and allium, usually those are biennial crops. So what do we have here? This little weird top hat looking alien protrusion from this hardneck garlic here. This is a garlic scape. So here we have the scape close up. So you can see it has that sort of funky look to it. It's really just the flowering stalk of a hardneck garlic, but we want the bulb this year, not next year, so we need to really focus on sending energy to that bulb, which means right about the time when these scapes kind of curl, they'll do a little 360 like that, it's a good time to come in, get down to the base here, and give it that clip. We've got the scapes. In fact, we have a lot of scapes, maybe like 80 or so. And let me just show you one of them. They look amazing. They smell amazing. And you really do want to take those off. You don't want the garlic to be developing too much in the way of a flower stalk. You'd rather have that energy sent back down towards the bulbs. At this point, garlic's probably about a month and a half away from harvest. You want to dial back your fertilizing more or less completely. Just water it, keep it well watered. And at the end, I'll show you in a second what'll happen about 2 or so weeks before harvest. Okay, the day is finally here. This corn looks amazing. This garlic looks a little bit less amazing, but that's actually what you want it to look like when it's finally time to harvest. So I want to zoom in really close and show you some signs to look for to know if your garlic is ready. So the first and most obvious sign is that the tops, the leaves, are starting to yellow, maybe even brown at the tips. But an even more telling sign is when the neck, right here, starts to flop a little bit. So this is a good sign that not much is happening up here anymore. It's kind of just living out the rest of its life. And a lot of that energy is already down in the bulb. So you don't have to wait necessarily until you get this floppiness, but it's a really good indicator. So when you're harvesting, you could certainly just pull it directly up if you want to. But if you remember part 1 or 2 of this video, I actually had to bury this pretty deep because it's hardneck garlic. And so I'm going to use a trowel to make my way through. And I'm going to just estimate the size of the bulb. It's roughly this big. So I want to come in well outside of that so I don't damage the bulb, and go down deep, because this is about 6 inches deep or so, and then just give it a firm little upheaval. And let's see what our very first garlic bulb looks like. So this one might have been a little bit underformed because you can see the bulb itself, the whole plant isn't super big. But hopefully the rest of these look good. Honestly, this is still edible, perfectly fine garlic, but I'm curious to see what the rest look like. So all of these are different types of garlic, both hardneck and softneck. So I want to make sure that I don't mix them up. I'll lay them all down as I harvest them in each row. But honestly, guys, I'm so excited because not only have I had a lot of problems with garlic, but I think I've come up with or adapted a method to growing all different types of garlic, no matter what climate you're in. So let's get to harvesting. Ooh, number 2 coming up a winner. So there's better clove separation on this one. Just take a look. You can see it's a lot wider, a lot thicker, and you can actually see the indentations of where each clove goes in. So it's a good sign. That means that I didn't mess up. It's just this one was a little bit young and underformed. I am very pleased with this harvest. You'll see I left 1 row still in the ground. That one is Russian red. The reason why is because it just seems a little young. These are still pretty green. they're still pretty firm and stiff. So I think I can get a little more production into that bulb. I noticed some of the ones that I pulled may have been slightly early or a little bit underdeveloped, but honestly, for the most part, a really solid harvest. So what I'll do is I'll let those hang out and we'll talk about drying, curing, storing, and all that next. It's been about 3 weeks since we've harvested the garlic. It has now fully cured. So what I did to cure the garlic is basically just leave it alone. So I clumped it up by variety. I have Russian red right here. That was one of the last ones to come out, that middle row that I kept in there for a little bit. And all I did was put it in these little slatted wooden racks. You can put it on anything that has ample airflow and just leave it alone. You don't want to wash it before you cure it. You don't want to take off the leaves. You don't really even want to brush too much of the dirt off. Just let it be. And so what I'm going to do right now that it has cured, is show you how you know it's cured and then prep this for longer term storage. The one thing to remember is if you're growing hardneck garlic, its storage life is just gonna be less than softneck. Hardneck's maybe 3.5, 4 months, whereas softneck you can store for much longer. Almost all of these are hardneck garlic, so at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you what I'm doing to preserve it in a more flavorful way, but for now, we just wanna see if it's cured. So I like to have 2 tools for this, a little micro tip pruner and then a larger pruning shear. But what we're gonna do is, let's look in the Montana Zemo variety right here. So we'll unclip my little tie. First signal you wanna look for is for the roots to be really nice and dry. So these are pretty dry. Easy thing to do is just trim those down to about 1/2 or 1/4 inch or so. That just keeps things a little bit more tidy. Next, you wanna do the beheading. You're actually just taking off the neck right here. So you're gonna go to about there or so. You're turning it back into what you see at the normal market. So what you want to look for, this was the hard neck, right? And so you want to look for this part to be dry. You don't want to see this color to be green. It should be somewhat dry and somewhat white. After that, this is pretty much it. If there's some paper that's really easy to come off, then go ahead and take that off. But you don't want to go too far, because you can see if I went a couple more layers, I'd already be getting into the actual garlic. But this is our finalized Montana Zemo bulb. So I'm gonna do all of the rest of these and I'll catch up with you in a second. All of our bulbs have been prepped as much as they can be. You'll actually notice some of these still have a little bit of a dirty appearance. It's mostly because the paper is very well cured, so it's really stuck around those cloves. So I'm just gonna let them be, because remember, when you smash them and you actually pull the real clove out, you're fine. The dirt's not gonna carry with it. So for storage, what I like is any kind of loose mesh bag. These ones came from Seed Savers Exchange, and all you're really gonna do is just drop them in. I mean, there's nothing fancy to it. What I'll probably end up doing is, just so I don't forget all these labels and varieties that I made, I'll probably end up like threading it through this or dropping it in. Maybe dropping it in makes more sense. And then now you're gonna store it just like you cured the garlic in the first place. Basically how you'd store it if you bought it at the grocery store, right? Like in your pantry, not exposed to light too much, not super humid. And that's pretty much it as far as getting garlic to a storage point. But like I said, hardneck garlic doesn't keep as long, and I have quite a bit of garlic. So I might get through this in 3 months, but I wanna go into the kitchen, take maybe this Majestic garlic here and turn it into a homemade garlic powder. So I've selected some garlic that doesn't look as nice, because if I turn it into a powder, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. So the first step is to peel all of these into cloves. We've cleaned up all the cloves. We've got some nice ones here. When you're dehydrating, you really want to come through and make even uniform pieces. So all I'm going to do is just slice all of these into very thin strips, trying to keep them roughly the same width. You don't need to be perfect, but something like this is fine, because we're going to lay these flat on the dehydrator to make our garlic powder. So we have these chopped into roughly even slices, and now what we want to do is pop them in our dehydrator and put them in. I'm using an Excalibur dehydrator, which I'll throw a link in the description to. It's more or less like the high-end choice if you're doing a lot of dehydrating and you don't want something to break down on you. But all we're doing here is we're just laying these out, spacing them out roughly evenly. You don't really want them touching, and hot air is going to be pushed through this system, sucking out all the moisture. And that's really it. Dehydrating is pretty self-explanatory. So let me load this up and we'll start it going. It's only taking up 2 racks. They're in. Let's just pop the top on and I'll talk about how to set up the dehydration. So to set it up, you're really just playing with 2 different things, temperature and time. For garlic, I think we can run it at about 125 degrees. Generally speaking, the lower the temp, the longer it's gonna take. So we'll run it at 125, but for the time, we're actually gonna run it for a considerable amount of time, at least 12 hours. You want it to be perfectly dry. So I'm gonna run it for, I might go with 18 just to be epic. Let's go with 18 and I'll get there in a second here. After that, you're just clicking start. It's been about 18 hours. I went overboard, but it's better to have it too dry than not dry enough, because if you don't, you get some clumping. So let's pop the top off the Excalibur and just pull one of these racks out right here. And then I'm gonna show you how you know it's perfectly dry. So just visually they look good, but what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that they'll perfectly snap in half, which means that they're very dry. So let's take a look. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. We should be good to go. So now what I'm doing is just taking a spice grinder. It's all you have to do. I think it's a lot better than a food processor or something like that, because it's designed to truly powderize. And you can hear just how hard these are when I drop them in. Listen. That's dehydrated, and as I throw them all over the place. But that's it. I'm just gonna pulse these until they are a powder, and we're good to go. This stores really, really, really well. So if you have a glut of garlic, this is a great way to use it. What we wanna do now is just pop it in and start to pulse. Starting to look powdery to me. Let's take a look. Whew, that garlic smoke, don't breathe that in. But take a look at that. Let's give it a dump onto this and just take a quick gander. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. I think it could use a little bit more grinding though. All right, that was the last batch on the second tray. So let's see what we got. I think you gotta not pulse it for too long because it can heat up. So that was a mistake on my part. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think I have enough to fill up maybe half of this, which is pretty impressive. But man, look at that. That's quality. Very powdery. There are some, ooh, okay, mistake. Mistake's been made. I will be scraping that up later. This is a lot of garlic powder. And these were all, remember, like I grew the garlic, these weren't the suboptimal cloves and bulbs. These were the ones that just weren't really super, super appealing. And now I've processed them and turned them into something that is. And I can use this for quite some time, especially because I've got this little guy. It's one of those oxygen absorbing packets, like a silica packet, I think. My only memory of these is when I used to go to Payless to get shoes, and they would be in every single thing of shoes. But apparently we are giving them new life here in my garlic powder box. Okay, pop this in, close it up, give it a little shake. I mean, that's half a small mason jar full of garlic powder. And this is gonna go a very, very, very long way. So from failing at growing garlic many times in the past couple years, having skunks eat it up, to figuring out how to grow not only soft neck garlic, but hard neck garlic here in a warm climate, all the way to processing it into something that you can actually use in your kitchen for the long term. I hope this guide was very helpful. If you haven't watched the earlier garlic guides, go watch part 1 and part 2. But for now, I'm gonna figure out something to use this on. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.